welcome to the Cheer Up Podcast. I am your host, Kara R. Hunt, and with me is the amazing Sherry Swalwell. How are you doing today, Sherry?
I am doing great. I can't believe that it's already July. I am loving the summer and not thinking about back to school, even though it's already in our faces in the stores. I am choosing to be intentional and living in the moment, not dreading what is coming ahead. School years are not bad, but I just love the pace of our summers. I love sitting out on the deck. I love just all of it. The bugs aren't quite as bad. The corn is starting to grow. I have morning walks with our youngest. I just love the pace of summer. I really, really do.
I know. It is amazing. You know what I love more about the summer is that early in the morning, because the trees are not full, right? And we have a sugar maple in our front yard, and it's just has tons of branches it's early in the morning. I now hear tons and tons of birds because a million of them live in that tree, and I am talking as early as 4 a.m.
Yes, there's nothing better than starting our day that way. We are the same way, and I think that's one of the reasons I love our early morning walks is they all, like last year I noticed them for the first time, and then this year, if you just stop and listen, there's so many different sounds to so many different birds, and it is just, I don't know, it just really makes me long for heaven because it just makes me think if God loves us so much to give us that now, what is our life going to be like up there? It blows me away.
I know. And it's the little things that, I guess I want to be grateful. And I don't think it's my age. I think it's just the fact that I never cease to be amazed by God's beauty, right? Natural beauty. And I'm like, I wonder how many times I just ignored this when I was younger, but little things like seeing different type of butterflies, just, my husband would hear me squee, and I had done that not too long ago, and because I was in the laundry room, we have a huge window in a laundry room, and I was looking out, and there's some wildflowers there, and he heard me go, oh my goodness, hey, pretty, and I know he had to be like, who is she talking to? In the laundry room, and right out there just dancing and pollinating around the wildflowers and stuff was a black butterfly. They are not common here, but they're not common, if you know what I mean. They're not uncommon, but they're still pretty rare to see. You don't see them every day like you see the monarchs and all the other butterflies here. And this one was so beautiful, and I was just like, hey, and he was just out there just, pollinating the flowers, and doing his business and stayed there, I think, for quite a while. I think I'm saying we get a picture or two as well. So just those little things. Now, obviously, that's not my first time seeing a black butterfly, but I'm like, how many times in the past have they been all around me? And I just never even noticed them before. God is so good in all of his creation, and the intricacies of a butterfly never ceases to be amazing. Am I right, Sherry? Do you guys have tons of black butterflies where you are?
Well, I have to tell you, a couple years ago, I'm trying to think how old our son was. He was still in elementary school. He actually called me out to see a black butterfly because he said the same thing that you did, and he knows the name of it. I don't know the name of it. I can't think of it now.
Right.
It's got this cool name, and he said the same thing. He said, Mom, these are so rare. He goes, you wouldn't believe it. And so I know exactly what you're talking about because we were admiring it too. And then I think we were in Tennessee, or we had just gotten back from Tennessee, and he saw another one this year already. And because of our discussion about it a few years ago, I thought, oh, wow, this really is not just, oh, Mom, look at the butterfly. This is like a really cool, big deal. And your squeeing reminded me or made me realize we are so much alike. We were in Tennessee earlier this year for vacation, and we had the privilege of having black bears come visit us right up on the cabin, on the porch of the cabin where we were staying. And our son caught a video, and I'm so embarrassed because I don't usually talk in a high-pitched, childlike voice. You can hear me on the video going, "Oh, I think it likes us." Like, seriously, like, I felt so ridiculous afterwards. But I was so enthralled by this bear whose nose was right on the screen, and we were literally nose to nose with this bear, and I was in heaven. It was the best, well, not the best ever, but it was amazing. And God, like you said, the intricacies of just our bodies, and then the intricacies of the creation that God created for us to enjoy, it just blows me away all the time. And I never, ever, ever want to take it for granted, ever.
I know, right? You just never want to take it for granted. And oh my goodness, if you sounded like a little girl, I probably would have sounded like, I have no idea, because I would have been so excited. I could just see both of our voices mingling on your videotape, and people going, "Who in the world is that?"
Exactly.
Because I would have just loved that, just being that up close and personal with them. And I would have been sorely tempted to open up the window and try to touch it, right? Which I don't like. No.
That's what was so cool about it, is we were outside on the porch after dinner playing cornhole, and they were literally 10 feet away from us, and we didn't even realize it. And we stayed on the porch outside until they got about 5 feet away, and then we came in the house. So, I mean, they were like right there with us, and they weren't aggressive. They were like curious, and they were obviously wild animals, so you don't want to like hit them. But it was so amazing. So amazing. And it was all God.
And that is the perfect way, right? Because you're there, they're there, you're respecting their wildness, but yet you're still appreciating their beauty and the awe that God has created them, right? So, it's not like, you try to play with them or do anything like that. I mean, that would just be crazy, right? Because they are wild animals, and we need to respect that. But that just adds to the beauty, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, the funny thing is the very first day, so we got there Mother's Day night, and we had we checked out the cabin, and then we went back into town to get some supplies. And we were on our way back, and we were all looking, and so, like, the mountain going up to the cabin, there's like sheer drop off. So like you really have to be paying attention when you're driving. And I would never drive it myself. My husband is amazing at it. And so we were both looking to the right because that was the side that the mountain dropped off on. And then we were looking, there were these housekeepers that were taking care of these other cabins on our way up to ours. And I turned to look at my husband, and we were driving really, really slowly because there were people out there and dumpsters that we had to go around and all kinds of stuff because they're building new houses all the time. Well, anyway, I turned to look at my husband, and he had his window down because it was beautiful weather. There was a bear right outside his window. I pointed, and all I said was, "Bear!" And he looked at me like, "What?" And he turned, and the bear was literally in his face. It was amazing. And then that was the baby, I think. And then the mom and the other baby were literally like 5 feet away in the little clearing of the woods right past where the one was right at his window. It was insane, but it was so beautiful. Oh my gosh. It was like probably the highlight of the trip.
And now I am completely envious, and I am right now thinking, I have got to hijack one of their trips one year. Hubby and I, and just meet them up there so I can have these type of experiences with these black bears. Like, how awesome is that? And for those of you who are just joining in and wondering, like, hey, wait, what type of podcast is this? Is this a Discovery Channel or? No, you have indeed reached the Cheer Up podcast. It's just that Sherry and I were just bantering on about our love of nature. I love of nature, and how we just are in awe of it, and how we just hope to stay in awe of all the God's creation and all the intricacies and the details and the little things, that make each and every little creature that much more awesome, right? Even though I don't like spiders, I can't help but just be in awe of their webs, right? And how they spin them, and, just everything that goes into that for them to be able to do so. We truly serve an awesome God. And speaking of God, we are going to continue our discussion in this summer series, which is called The Screwtape Letters. We are going over some of the topics that are covered in the book, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. That's last name is spelled Lewis. The book was, I believe, originally published in the early 1940s, so it's a piece of classical literature. It's not a very long book. It's only like 31 letters to the book, and they're rather short in comparison to books nowadays. But in comparison to classical literature books, which could be like very, very, very thick. No, this is not like that. And again, it's just like 31 letters. I think there may be 6, 7, 8, maybe maximum 8 paragraphs long, and it's called The Screwtape Letters because it is about a demon named Screwtape. And he is writing letters to his nephew, Wormwood, who is also a demon. Uncle Screwtape that is a head demon, and then nephew Wormwood is like a lower-ranking demon, kind of new to the whole demon process thing. And he's been assigned a human who's very new to the faith. And Uncle Screwtape is just giving tips and advice and suggestions to his nephew Wormwood about how to handle his Christian so that the Christian does not end up in God's camp, but in Satan's house. And that's basically what the Screwtape's Letter is about. We started this series on June 7, so please, 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 please go back and listen to that episode because there we give an overview, just a very quick overview of the Screwtape Letters, and also we give tons of information, but most importantly, we share biblical information and scriptures on demons, who they are they real, and what does the Bible have to say about them, and all of that. So, and we cover that, like I said, in a very first episode in June, and I believe it's June 7th. So you please go back and listen to that if you have any further questions about the demons that we are talking about in this book. Last week we went over letters 4 and 5. Which was about sincere prayer and war. War meaning, of course, the book was written in the 1940s, so it's referring to the wars that was going on back then, and how nephew Wormwood's Christian patient, pretty much, his initial reactions and things to the war. This episode, we are going to be continuing with letters 5 and 6. And letter 5 talks about the focus of, what Wormwood should be focusing on in a focus of his Christian human, I guess I should say, and then letter 6, which talks about extremism. But I also want to quickly add, before we kind of just delve into those topics, that for those of you who have really been enjoying this dialogue, or these episodes on C.S. Lewis, and you're like, hey, I got some things I want to say, some things I want to add, some things I want to talk about, then let us know. Send us your thoughts, your insights, your commentary to cheerupodcast@gmail.com, and we may include it, in a future upcoming podcast. But also, we may create a Twitter space just to discuss this topic. And if we get at least 10 people who send an email to Cheer Up Podcast saying, hey, yes, I'm interested, and oh, by the way, here are my thoughts, insights, and comments, if we get at least 10, then we would definitely consider doing a Twitter space for everyone to just, not just me and Sherry talking about it, but getting everyone involved and dialoguing about this book and the topics that are covered. Okay, so again, welcome to True Nation, and we are going to continue our topic of the letters that are covered, letter 5 and 6 in the Screwtape letters, which is letter 5 is about focus, and basically there. Actually, with 5 and 6, because I can kind of summarize both of these pretty quick. So letter 5 is about focus, and letter 6, he talks. Screwtape and Uncle Wormwood talk about extremism, and so basically these are just continuations of what was going on in letters 4 and 5, which is where a head demon, Uncle Screwtape, is telling newer demon, nephew Wormwood, to keep his newly assigned Christian, distracted. And how easy that can be, since his Christian is a very new Christian, and he talks about how keep his focus on anything other than like real, sincere, genuine, heartfelt prayer. And that is kind of like and to get his focus on anything other than the God who created him, and really searching his heart and calling out to God, and and just getting on his knees and being humble in prayer, any and everything. He wants him to change his focus to anything and everything that he can, to kind of just really keep him on a path to joining them in hell someday. And so basically letter 5 is where it talks about focus, is a continuation of that. And then letter 6, where it talks about extremism, is kind of continuation of I'm saying letters 5 and 6. I mean letters 6 and 7, so please excuse me for that. Today's episode is about letters 6 and 7. Letter 4 was about sincere prayer. Letter 5 was about war. Letter 6 is about focus, and letter 7 is about extremism. So I wanted to correct that for those who may actually have the book and may be following along and be like, Kara, what are you talking about? You're off. So I just want to go ahead and correct that. But in the extremism part, in letter 7, it's the war. Again, it's the 1940s, and the war is ramping up, and people are being called up to war, and it's very likely that the young demon's nephew Wormwood, who's a young demon, that his new Christian patient, his human, is about to be called up to war, and he wants him to his Uncle Screwtape is basically kind of telling him to let his Christian human express his hatred for the Germans onto his neighbors, who may, into his neighbors, or, and things like that. For example, like, are any of them of German descent, or something like that, is basically, I think, what he was, getting at. Or if they're not, if they're in favor, and things like that. So basically it's about extremism and hatred. And I guess what popped out to me, especially in letter 7, where it talks about extremism, Sherry, is, I don't know. It seems like it's, and I don't know how and I don't know why these two are just now connecting per se in my head, but hatred and extremism. You see what I'm saying? Because Uncle Screwtape is using those together. Like, he's fueling the emotion or the spirit of hatred, into extremism or extreme patriotism, and things like that. So as I know, hatred is an emotion and something that we definitely should avoid as Christians, I don't always tend to align it with extremism. Is that the way you kind of have you? Is that different for you, Sherry? Have you always just kind of combined the two? I know a lot of other people do. Um, but I know that we can be upset at some things and we could, say like, oh my goodness, I hate that or something like that. But it's not always on the level of extremism to me. What is your view on hatred, Sherry?
Well, I guess I kind of feel like nowadays people are just extreme with everything. Like they either really, really, really love something or they really, really, really hate something. People, it feels as though, well, let me put it this way. Since COVID happened, I was explaining this to a different friend the other day. It seems like pre-COVID, you have 100 people. 50 of them were going through something bad. The other 50 were not. So they could then support the 50 that were. COVID hit, and everybody was going through the same amount of stress, and nobody had the reserve to support and encourage the other people. Everyone was just kind of on survival mode. They were kind of on, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going on. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to put our own oxygen mask on before we can even look at or think about somebody else's oxygen mask. And then post-COVID, again, it seems like the majority of people are still in high-stress situations, and there's very few people who are not that are able to then come and help. And I think that it's the high stress that brings that extremism, either the extreme love or the extreme hate. And so as believers, yes, we're still in high stress mode too, but we have the secret weapon. We have the weapon of hope. We have the weapon of peace. We have the weapon of we know who's going to win. We have the weapon of mercy and grace, and we need to use those. We need to not just talk about them. We need to not just ask God to give them to us, but we need to actively use them to help counteract the extreme stress and the extreme circumstances that we're under. Now, I'm not saying that as believers we have everything's hunky-dory, peachy clean, and we're not allowed to experience grief. We're not allowed to experience loss. We're not allowed to experience anger. We're not allowed to experience our emotions. I feel like in order to truly be healthy, you have to experience your emotions. But we can avoid the major extremes because we have God's peace, God's hope, God's patience, God's love, God's mercy. And we need, as Christians, more than ever, we need to display those and be good representations of Jesus so that those who need it, those who are in the extreme categories, who are under the extreme stress, they are under the extreme weight of whatever is burdening them, can see a difference and then come to God, and God can give them the peace, the hope, the love. It doesn't mean we'll walk it out perfectly, but we need to be conscious, aware, and intentional. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And I love how you brought up the pandemic, because in 2020, we weren't facing a world war, so to speak. Like World War III wasn't about to take place on a global stage. But oh my goodness, you would have thought it was, right? Because
I know, yeah.
Right? You would have thought it was, because people were drawing lines. Oh my goodness, it was, you were, someone says, I want to wear a mask, and then someone else would say, I don't want to wear a mask. And then all of a sudden you had like this whole army against you for not wanting to wear one, right? And then it's like you were at war, and vice versa. You were like, I don't want to wear a mask, and then someone else said, I want to wear one, and then you still had a whole army against you. And it was just absolutely insanity. So it wasn't like a global war that was about to happen, as in, nephew Wormwood's Christian human was facing at the time. But it was, it's more on the level of war, and this was globally. The pandemic was globally. And that's why I say it was a whole different type of war, about how people were handling it. And talk about extremism. Because it wasn't just, and just using the mask as an example, I'm just using it as an example, but just using that as using the mask usage as an example, people were very extreme on either side. It was like no one could be, it just seemed like it was very rare for someone to be content with someone else doing opposite of what they wanted, and it was like, for instance, if person A said, well, I'm going to wear a mask if I go to this place, and then person B says, yeah, you'll never catch me wearing a mask. I don't believe the pandemic. It's it's all a hoax. Is this, is that, and everything else, and everything else. And then for them to actually just say, okay, cool, all right, well, we're still going, right? Yeah, we're still going. But it became more of like an extremism, like, what? You're not going to wear one? You're putting everybody's life in danger. Don't you know that? And to other one, to someone else, being like, you're a conspiracy theorist. How can you fall for this? It just became very, very extreme. And I could just only imagine, right, using the screw tape letters as an example, and Uncle Screw Tape and Nephew Wormwood, like in the spiritual realm, how many little demonic minions were out there actively at work on both sides, pumping up and fueling the hatred, pumping up and fueling the fear, pumping up and fueling the anxiety, keeping everyone focused on what everyone else was doing. Okay, like he talks about in a couple of letters that we've already covered, just keep the focus on what everyone else was doing and not so much on what was most important, which was our souls and our well-being and our relationships with God. And even that was under attack in the pandemic, because they were like, okay, well, you shouldn't go to church. Well, no, I'm going to go to church. Oh, no, how are you going to do that? You're going to be a super spreader. You're going to do this. You're going to do that, And people are like, what? What are you saying? What are you talking about? Everything just seems so extreme. And spiritually speaking, in the spiritual world, it would have been it would have been amazing. Very, very, very scary, but nonetheless amazing to see all the demonic minions at work on both sides all over the globe. What do you think about the spiritual aspect of all of that, Sherry?
Oh, I completely 100% agree with you. If we, as I sit here and we talk about the screw tape letters, I think about how easy it is, because we're so busy, we're so stressed. We live in a world that does not advocate for rest, does not advocate for taking care of ourselves, does not advocate. In the olden days, you had to sit and wait for the fire to start before you could cook dinner. You had to sit.
Oh, yeah.
You used to walk places, so your mind could rest while you were walking, unless you were worried about wild animals and people killing you. But you had rest woven into your day. And people who try to rest, or who try to have rest woven into their day today, are condemned, are ridiculed, are told that they're weak, they're lazy, whatever. And so what I feel from this, the main theme, or the underlying theme, is that the demons, like, there's so much at play in the supernatural realm. It's these little things that get us. It's not that he comes at us with these big, huge things necessarily. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he gets us with illnesses, or, things, catastrophes, COVID, stuff like that. But it's the little things. It's the little compromises. It's that slippery slope that one day you wake up and you are further down than you ever thought you would be. And it just, like you said, to be able to have our eyes opened and see the supernatural and what's truly happening, I think all of us would wake up and feel very differently and act and make very different choices, which we should talk about that next week when we start talking about the troughs and peaks and pleasure, because those are the topics that we're going to have next week. So I think we should carry this conversation on next week and just let people have that food for thought this week. That what do you think? Like, do you believe that there is truly angels and demons fighting for the greater good? Do you truly believe that there is more than just what meets the eye? And if so, what are your thoughts on that? Let us know if you want to have your own, if you want to join in on the discussion, and we can do a Twitter, what did you call it again, a Twitter feed?
Twitter space.
Twitter space. We can do a Twitter space about it, because we would love to hear there's nothing that I love more than to talk about books and talk about topics and have that back and forth dialogue. I love listening to other people's opinions. I love hearing what you think, and I love just learning from other people. So if you want to join in on the discussion and you want us to have a group meet in July and August and September, then let us know that you're interested. Email us at cheeruppodcast@gmail.com and let us know of your interest in starting one of those. Go over to Kara's website, KARARHUNT.com, and find out about her fiction books, her series, the Habakkuk series. Find out about, pretty soon, I think Lydia is going to be up on there. People are going to be able to find out more about that. And just look around and get to know Kara a little bit better. Come over to my website, SherrySwalwell.com, CHERISWALWELL.com. And if you want to stop that slippery slope, if you want to grow a relationship with God naturally on your own timetable and just get to know him more intimately, I would encourage you to check out the Jesus to Me Everyday membership. It's less than the price of a cup of coffee, a free food drink, for the whole month. And I think that you would be, you won't get the caffeine high or crash. You won't get the sugar crash. And you will just get a chance to really get to know and grow your relationship with God. And I don't know about you, Kara, but today's time, we need to stay in the Word. We need to be growing.
Yes.
And in a way that is natural and on your timetable, at your pace. It doesn't need to be something that's forced. It doesn't need to be something that's demanded. It's just the more we dig in and the more that we choose to have that relationship with God, the more hungry he makes us for things of him. And I don't want to lose that hunger. I don't want to lose that awe of his creation and the bears and the butterflies. And I don't want to lose that hunger for growing in him. So just a few things I wanted to encourage you all about. John 16:33, Jesus tells us that these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. We are so glad that you are here today. Come back next week. We're going to talk about troughs and peaks and pleasure. Those are the two letters or chapters that we're going to talk about next week. Until then, have a great rest of your week and enjoy your summer.